Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise tonight to honour the memory of a fantastic Territorian, Roy Manaway. When I was growing up in Bachelor, Roy was a local legend, being the proprietor of the Rum Jungle Recreation Club. I wasn't old enough to visit the club back in the 80s when I was there and he was there, but I did hear his name spoken of quite frequently in relation to it, always in respectful tones, as Roy ran a tight ship at the club. I was lucky enough to run into Roy again in 2020 when I was door knocking. Many years had passed by that point compared to the days when he was running the club, but he was still quick-witted and had that sharp glimmer in his eyes. I would like to read an amended version of the eulogy that was spoken at the celebration of his life by his son, Rod Tremlett, who has given me permission to read it here for the record. Thank you to all who attended the celebration of life of Roy Manaway. In his speech, Rod said that even though Roy was not his biological father, Roy was truly his dad. Roy was the loving partner and husband to Rod's mum, Val, up until her passing in 2010, and was the father figure in Rod's life from the age of 5. Huey Roy Manaway was born on the 22nd of April 1938 to parents Huey Robert Manaway and Mavis Elizabeth Manaway in the Mackay District Hospital. Roy was the oldest of 6 siblings, with brothers Richard, twins Peter and Paul, and sisters Heather and Caroline. We acknowledge the Manaway family members. Our condolences are with you all. Roy's early years were spent in Farley, North Queensland, where his mum and dad operated a sugarcane farm and established a home for their growing family. As a young boy, Rod was fortunate enough to meet Mr. and Mrs. Manaway and can fondly remember how very proud they were of all that Roy was achieving, managing pubs in Darwin, but more of that soon. Roy was a physically fit young fella, and during what I imagine were pretty tough times post the Second World War, he learnt how to protect his family and himself. Rod recalls Roy telling him that at a young age he had a disagreement with an overzealous school principal, which resulted in a physical altercation and Roy's subsequent expelling from the school after giving the principal a bit of a touch-up. In the 50s and 60s, Roy continued to work in the family cane farm and pursued his talent for boxing. This pursuit saw him become a member of the famous Jimmy Sharman boxing tent troupe that travelled the region putting on shows for the locals. At the time, Roy was also ranked number 6 in boxing in Australia in the middleweight division. He retained a healthy respect for the sport of boxing for many years. As his life continued in Mackay, Roy married and had 6 children of his own: Darren, Rory, Julie, Tracy, Avril and Lisa. Roy was proud of all of his kids, and despite his first marriage coming to an end, they all held a special place in his heart. In the early 1970s, Roy decided to make the move north in search of further adventure. His physical conditioning and ability to use his hands saw him land a job as a heavy machinery operator on the Tiwi Islands before a further move to Darwin saw him work a number of jobs, including working on the construction of the Darwin Travelodge, at the time Darwin's tallest building. As a way of supplementing his income, Roy would work security at the local pubs, drawing on his experience in the ring over many years. He quickly earned a reputation, along with his crew of bouncers, for managing and maintaining appropriate behaviour in licensed establishments in what at the time was a very challenging environment. Roy worked and managed many of the local pubs around Darwin, but it was his time at the Dolphin Hotel that many old Darwinians would remember. The Dolphin was a pretty rough frontier pub where many locally diverse characters gathered. Times were different to what they are today, and staff had to be pretty creative in how they handled the rowdiness of the crowds. Roy always took great pride in ensuring the safety of his patrons and staff by employing any means necessary to ensure that this occurred. I'm sure some of the practices he used back then would be frowned upon today, but he always got the job done, and the local police presence were regularly thankful for his assistance. Roy also met the woman who was to become his partner and love of his life, Valma Tremlett, at the Dolphin Hotel. They fell in love and were inseparable from that time on, working hard together, often with Roy in the pub and Val running the kitchen. The two were married some 20 plus years later on the 8th of August 1998. Roy and Val spent 7 or 8 years at the Dolphin Hotel, and in that time they worked hard, had fun and made lifelong friends with patrons and staff alike. On Christmas Eve 1974, Roy and Val, along with some staff, were enjoying Christmas drinks after closing time. As many of you may know, Cyclone Tracy hit Darwin that evening. Roy, Val and the staff had to take cover in the central bar fridge in the saloon bar of the hotel. As the eye of the cyclone passed over the town, Val exited the fridge to get food supplies for everyone, just making it back in time before the wind started again. On ensuring everyone's safety and now understanding the ferocity of the storm, Roy held the fridge door ajar with his hands to ensure they weren't trapped in the fridge as the destruction unfolded around them. The cyclone caused significant damage to the town and the Dolphin was not spared its ferocity. Roy and Val spent much of 1975 focused on servicing patrons from makeshift facilities and overseeing the rebuild of the pub. As time passed, Roy's experience in licensed venues became recognised by owners of some of Darwin's biggest hotels and his skills were keenly sought after. Roy's roles meant that Rod and the family moved from the Dolphin Hotel to the Limbs Hotel and then to the Railway Institute over the next few years. Then one day, Roy received a call from NT Breweries asking if they could go to Tennant Creek and manage the hotel there. Not long after the family had packed up their things and were about to head to Tennant when they received a call advising that the pub at Bachelor, a small town an hour south of Darwin, needed assistance, and could they go there first? Roy agreed, and what was supposed to be a 2-week stint ended up being a stay of some 15 years. As it turned out, Roy ended up managing the Rum Jungle Recreation Club up until his retirement. In that time, with member funds accumulated through his outstanding management, the makeshift club building was demolished and a brand new bar and bistro was built, a major upgrade from the hangar-style building previously enjoyed by the members. Roy took great pride in being able to oversee the upgrade of the premises at the Rum Jungle Rec Club and serving patrons in Bachelor for many years. Whilst the nature of Roy's job ensured interaction with so many people, due to the nature of the work, often 7 days a week, 363 days a year, and many 14 to 16-hour days, very few people got to know and understand Roy. Despite the demands of his job, he always made Val and Rod a priority and sacrificed a lot to make sure they always had what they needed. Roy valued respect. He taught Rod to treat people the way they treat you, regardless of who they were. Roy could hold a conversation with the Chief Minister or the Administrator, and often did, one moment, and be lending someone who was down on their luck $20 in the next. He treated everyone the same. Roy valued loyalty. He had the ability to build a loyal team that worked hard for him. Rod said at times he could be hard to work for as he set high standards for those who were led by him. But once you earned his trust, he would do anything to ensure you were okay. Roy loved to help the community wherever he could and always felt, with the role the clubs and pubs played in the fabric of the territory, that he was in a privileged position to do so. Roy has been described by many as a true territory icon who contributed to the very fabric of society in the top end in the 70s and 80s. Roy loved the territory, his home for more than 50 years, and there are many people he positively affected along the way. Rod, in his eulogy, made special mention of the staff at Janinga Aged Care Centre in Coconut Grove, where Roy lived the last few years of his life, the Royal Darwin Hospital and the Darwin Hospice. The family are immensely proud of all that Roy achieved and thankful now that he's in a place of peace, finally reunited with his loving wife, Val. Thank you.